analogy is we have these flashlights. We're in the darkness, and we're just flashing throughout this cave, and we're trying to get these clues of what's going on, and trying to make out what exactly is in this cave. So we'll look at components of the brain and some research based on the current state of affairs. So without further ado, let's look at some of this research here. In COCD, in Disgust research, that's what we're focusing on right now. So there's a lot of different designs and a lot of different ways in which to examine this question, but there's, based on the literature search that I've done, I see a general pattern in how they are looking at how disgust is related to COCD. So a lot of researchers take general participants and convenience samples, college students, usually freshmen and sophomore, and they give them a questionnaire that makes assessments. And this questionnaire will figure out whether they are highly related to a COCD patient or highly unrelated to a COCD patient. And with these questionnaires, they're able to separate groups that would be kind of like analogs to COCD and groups that would not be analogs to COCD. And then from there, they have participants get exposed to disgust stimuli. Usually the case, what happens is they come into the lab and they may see a picture of something disgusting, like a dirty toilet, or maybe somebody eating bat soup or something like that. So they see something disgusting. But other research has also presented participants with odors, or had them imagine a particular disgust-based stimuli of some sort. So close your eyes for a moment, and imagine eating fried crickets and worms. You know, something like that would also invoke disgust. But the best, or the most common way, not necessarily the best, but the most common stimuli that you use is more of a photo-based stimuli. And so with this photo-based stimuli, they then evoke a disgust response by showing them a picture of a dirty toilet. And then from there, the participants, we have to investigate what's happening in the brain. So a lot of neuroscientists may look at behaviors associated with disgust, but we're looking at brain states. And so the big key player in studying brain states are these brain scanning devices, the PET scans, the SPECT scans, the fMRI, the MRI. These are things that are used in order to examine brain states, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but I just want to give you a general overview. But this is the centerpiece of the design. Participant comes in, they look at a photo-based disgust stimuli, they're measured, their brain state is measured with some brain scanning apparatus, and then perhaps the brain scanning apparatus is looking at the structure or looking at the blood flow or the activity of the brain. From there, they're making these sort of associations. So they're saying when somebody receives a disgust stimuli, this activity happens in these particular regions of the brain. Now, what if we give them a prescription drug of some sort? What if we give them an SSRI, or let's say we give them an antipsychotic medication of some sort? Would that reduce the brain activity, especially in COCD patients, or would that increase the brain activity? And what we would hope to see is that if you give them some prescription drug that's related to blocking these neurotransmitters, and there's a reduced response, then we have an association here. We have these clues that we see. Oh, perhaps it's this neurotransmitter that is hyperactive, or an influx of this neurotransmitter is telling part of the story of why the COC patient has COCD in the first place. They have too much serotonin, which the data does suggest is that there is an influx of serotonin in certain areas of the brain that's activated, or happening, or being released, I should say. But then maybe they give them some sort of cognitive-based therapy of some sort, and that's more of this sort of like, how do we cure something, not cure it, but how do we attenuate it in some way. So we're going to stick more to the prescription drugs because we want to get into the really, really nitty-gritty details of where exactly in the brain that's being affected and how it's being affected in the COCD patient. So this is some of the research here, and they also have case studies that they use to get clues and compare COCD patients with other disorders like Alzheimer's and schizophrenia and PTSD. But here's something that was the problem, or a great dilemma in the literature review, is I didn't find a sufficient amount of studies that looked at enough people with COCD. There are very, very small samples, and a lot of times in research you have to reach a certain threshold when it comes to sample size. And in some of these studies, there wasn't a really large amount of sample size. So that's why they have to take participants from a general population and separate them out into groups of those with a high proclivity with association with COCD, and those with a lower proclivity and having a lower, less associated with OCD and COCD, and see how they respond to disgust-based stimuli and what brain states are being activated. So I'm going to go ahead and stop right here, and we'll pick it up next time. We're going to go into research. We're going to go into more design aspect and things that we can do about it when it comes to the current state of affairs in COVID. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to hearing from you next time.